Welcome down the rabbit hole, friends. We're here today to deep dive into Chapter 6 of Hoffman's book, Kate Gosselin, How She Fooled the World. Guys, I've come at this book highly skeptical, okay? Now, Hoffman is showing me that he has a lot of validated sources, so it's kind of thrown me for a loop. But my thought about the whole situation is why and how would any woman want to sacrifice her body, sacrifice her health, sacrifice her life, specifically chasing down trying to have multiples? And why and how wouldn't she feel a sense of dread or fear over the fact that having that many children at one time could be very risky to the babies? It just doesn't make sense to me. Who does something like that? No one, right? And then I remembered Nadia Suleiman.
Of her 8 new babies. Good morning again, Ann.
Good morning once again, Meredith and Matt. After the initial positive reaction to the births, Nadia, now with 14 children, all under the age of 8, has come under intense scrutiny. Questions are being raised about her in vitro fertility treatments and how she will raise so many children as a single mom without a job.
Nadia Suleiman is such an enigma to me. I don't understand, except to say that this person clearly has severe mental health issues, but I think it was very obvious.
But throughout our interview, she seemed confident that her babies will be loved and cared for as best as she can.
I don't know, maybe because people in Nadia's life came out from the beginning and started saying something is wrong. There's always been something wrong, and we're very concerned about her.
This is Noah and Malia. We're doing really, really good.
While controversy swirls outside the octuplets hospital, inside the neonatal unit, it is peaceful.
Maybe if people were coming out about Kate Gosselin like that, then we would have seen it from the beginning.
Hi, Malia. Your eyes are open. This is Noah, and he's doing well. He's really well. He's not on oxygen or anything. And he's the blonde one. He's Jonah, the tiniest one that was the troublemaker.
And I do think that part of Nadia's story getting broken down and torn apart and everybody realizing this is a woman with a lot of issues is the fact that there was no father involved, right? That had to have really piqued people's interest and suspicions.
I feel torn because I have the other kids at the house, and I want to be here too, and I can't wait till they're all together because we're not a whole family yet. Whereas
Kate was really good at manipulating. She came forward as this wholesome Christian woman who, she made this narrative. She was really good at making the narrative up that, this was a surprise. Now Hoffman is showing us that that's not the case. It's so hard to believe it because media-wise, we were receiving all this feedback that the narrative was these are just 2 loving parents doing their best to get by in life, and they've got this shocker of a lifetime, and it's a miracle, and let's all pitch in and help out and be the community that's needed.
How did an only child end up with 14 children?
That was always a dream of mine, to have a large family, a huge family. And I just longed for certain connections and attachments with another person that I really lacked.
And it was the opposite reaction to Nadia Suleiman. Nadia's life is crazy, right? I mean, she has done things like go on reality TV show boxing matches. I think she did PORN. She's had to really sell herself out in order to be able to afford that many children. And I know there's also been a lot of questions about if she was taking care of the children properly.
You're saying 1 or 2 at a time.
Taking my history into consideration, it was very appropriate. And then once that was done and one grew and it was very healthy.
And why didn't you stop?
He deserved siblings. See, that's again me projecting my own wants and wishes onto my child.
It was such a sad situation, but it kind of proves what I thought was unprovable, which is that there are clearly women out there who seek this kind of situation and think of it as like a way of gaining fame and attention, and that's crazy. Why would you? This is not just like, I don't even know, like getting a weird plastic surgery to look like Barbie for attention. Like, this is about the lives, like the entire lives of several children being seriously affected by the choices that you make. And also, like, there's a lot of danger. There's danger for yourself and danger for the babies. So it's really unbelievable to me that this is literally a thing. So once I kind of looked back at the Nadia Suleiman case, like a little bit more in depth, it helped me to see that, I mean, there are people like this, and Hoffman is showing us the sources, giving us the information, showing receipts. And I have to say that I'm beginning to really believe that Kate planned this life for herself and for her kids. And knowing what's become of it, the fact that one of the children, Colin Goslin, has basically been ostracized from the family and sent off because he had whatever issue he may have. Who knows? Maybe it is a severe issue. Maybe there's nothing. It just makes it all the more sick because you, Kate Goslin, seemingly chose to do this. You chose to have these multiple births. You were after it for whatever reason. So if you then have a child that really struggles living in a home with 8 children and needs a lot more attention and maybe has ADHD or OCD or whatever problem, maybe that's partially because of the choices you've made, and to abandon them. And I'm a big proponent of, mental health needing to be addressed with kids. I've worked in facilities like the one that Colin Goslin went to as a nurse. And I would never put someone down for being like, I need help. There are definitely times that these facilities are needed. But to leave your child there for allegedly 2 years, something's up with all of this. And then on top of that, what really proves to me that something is wrong is to then years later, when this child becomes an adult, to still completely ostracize him from the family so that even his siblings aren't a part of his life, aren't supportive of him. There's something wrong with that. No matter what Colin has done, there's very few things that he could have done that would support the idea that his siblings and his mother should not be a part of his life. There's just very few. I'm talking about like Joshua Duggar level stuff that would be like, I need to protect my kids. And we have no evidence that anything like that ever happened, But, to be like, well, he was out of control. He was like kicking people and using bad language. That is no reason to later in life support like his siblings not having a relationship with him. To not want to love him unconditionally as a mother, even if you need boundaries. I mean, I am shocked by all of that, and it's something I will go into. Again, I'm going backwards, and I'll do videos about the current situation eventually, but when I look at all of it, I cannot help but be pretty disgusted by Kate, her choices, and her behavior. Until more evidence comes out that shows me otherwise, I can't help but believe a lot of what's being presented in this book. Okay guys, this is a little aside about my last video. Thank you so much to everyone who watched it. I wanted to let you know that I am and I was aware that I made a big mistake in uploading the video. The short of it is, I'm sorry. I know a lot of you were confused and I'm sure it was annoying. The long of it is, those who have been on my channel for a while know, I just moved home from Kuala Lumpur and our house is a work in progress. I'm really struggling with keeping up with everything. I've got my kids home, I'm by myself, so there's just a lot going on. But one of the issues that's come along in my life is that living out in the country, the internet is just not working very well. It's taking hours and hours to upload these videos. I made a mistake in uploading my last video. Once I realized that there was a problem with it, I took a look at it and thought to myself, there's no way I can go back and do this again. I've got too much to do. I've got to move on. I've got to go forward. I don't want to be unprofessional for you guys, but let's be honest, I am unprofessional. I've got a lot of other things going on. I kind of do this for fun in the early morning or at the late night time. So I apologize about the last video. Thanks to all of you who stick in there regardless of how much of a mess I am. Amen to all the hot mess moms out there. Thanks for sticking around. Now let's get back to the book. Chapter 6. Okay, chapter 6 is entitled On the Job Training. And we hear a little bit from a colleague of Kate Goslin's, a nurse that used to work with her in one of her jobs at a local Pennsylvania hospital. And we're going to hear again from this person and other colleagues throughout the book, and that's one of the most interesting components to me, is to hear about Kate before she ever kind of insulated herself, became a stay-at-home mom, and just kind of started running her own little kingdom. Because I like to hear about who she was and what she was like to be around out in the real world with real people who aren't her family.
So the girls were born just months after our first year anniversary, which now thinking about it, what the heck was our rush? But anyway.
So this coworker comes to Hoffman and he or she is like, yeah, looking back on my interactions with Kate Goslin, there were a lot of strange questions and issues brought up on the job about fertility treatments. So they were working in a labor and delivery unit where they don't really do anything with fertility, but this person is like, yeah, Kate was always asking a lot of questions about how fertility treatments work, the chance of having multiples.
I was just afraid that it would never happen, and so I just wanted to make sure, it was possible. Pause 1 second, Daddy. It's not worth it now, but someday we'll say, oh, I don't even remember when the girls were that little.
And then this person also confirms that Kate was constantly talking about the McCoy family, okay? So the family that had already given birth to 7 children and had become quite famous because of it. This random colleague is like, yeah, she kept bringing up the McCoys and talking about what are the chances of making this happen or losing a baby when this happens, how dangerous is it, how did they do it, what kind of treatments work for this. So she was already just going down a really weird path.
Hi, girls, I can't see you. Oops, now I can't see Maddie. Her hat's over her head. Her hat's over her face, Daddy. Look here, girls.
We did everything.
We were felt complete for the moment. We were happy. We were content.
And once again, it's so hard for me to understand because having had 2 children who are not multiples, the process of being pregnant, and I know everybody's different, but it was hard. It's a lot of work. You don't feel great on your feet all day. And then your hormonal changes. I mean, my life totally changed. Not even once I became a mom, once I became pregnant.
It was really manageable. We had no help. We didn't need help. We didn't want help. It was when when they were 9 months old, we bought our house, our first house that you've seen. And we moved in, and when they turned 1, I was actually sad.
The hormones going like this. So many things changed in my life, changed about my body. So it's really interesting to me to think that there are people who seek out these major changes in their lives and do it with such whatever, just for the fun it is to have a child. And I can't imagine John and Kate having twins, how hard that would be. 2 babies up at night, all night, feeding, doing whatever, and then still wanting to have more multiples. It's just really kind of shocking to me.
Because I just felt like my babies were growing up and I wanted another baby, but John wouldn't hear anything about it. John saw how very badly I wanted another baby, and he agreed to let us go back. And we decided that when the girls turned 3 that October, we could start trying again.
So getting back to this colleague, she says, Kate seemed to have an agenda, but at the time we had no idea what she was up to. Looking back, it makes a lot more sense now. The questions she was asking had nothing to do with her job at the time. She talked about the McCoy septuplets a lot and how dangerous it must have been for the mother. For the mother. Oh, yeah. Right, for the mother. That's sad because, I mean, the main issue that the McCoys brought up when you look back at their documentaries is like the fear of losing the babies, of the babies being born with like defects because there were so many in the womb at one time. But I guess Kate's asking questions about how dangerous it would be for her, you know?
And so the next time I could go back was October. And I always knew in my heart, I can't explain it, but I knew that that is when I would get pregnant, and it was. So.
And we took the girls to Disney World.
In between there.
Yeah, because I guess we felt
like it would be our last hurrah vacation.
And the colleague also says that Kate was also very interested in the many different fertility medications that were out there, what each one did, even though they weren't working at a fertility clinic. And then the colleague says it was really strange because from talking to Kate, the colleague was like, she already knew everything there was to know about infertility by the sound of her, but she seemed to be looking for reinforcement and wanting to hear first-hand stories. Okay, so the rest of chapter 6 is very much focused on Hoffman giving us evidence that Kate was doctor shopping and that it comes off as really weird given Kate's predilection for being very OCD and wanting to do the same thing all the time because she used a certain clinic and a certain doctor, we'll call them Dr. A, for the fertility treatment for Maddie and Kara. This clinic and doctor were known for being like one of the best fertility treatment centers in Pennsylvania, and it was far away from their home in Wyoming. But Kate traveled up there to get the best. And of course, who was paying? Can you guess who was paying for all these fertility treatments? Kate's father-in-law. So Kate's living a pretty cushy lifestyle. She's been able to have her twins. And according to Hoffman, when she tries to go back to Dr. A, this seemingly responsible doctor tells her, you may not need fertility treatments. Like, number one, maybe you should try for a little while because the fertility treatments worked very quickly for you the first time. So maybe you guys should take some time to try on your own. Or number two, maybe we should switch to IVF instead of IUI. Now, admittedly, I really didn't know very much about the differences in these two methods. I've never worked in that area as a nurse, and I've never wanted to have multiples, so I haven't been asking everyone about fertility treatments my whole life. But Kate did not want to go down the route of IVF.
I think the change came after our babies were born.
Like sextuplets?
Yes. That was the beginning of me realizing that everybody has an opinion, and sometimes those opinions aren't my opinions.
And Hoffman, he breaks it down pretty well. Like, what are the differences? I'm just going to do a quick overview for you. So from my understanding, IVF is a treatment in which a doctor will remove an embryo, fertilize it, and then implant it back into the mother. So in this situation, you have a lot of control over the fact that you may only implant one embryo or two embryos. But with IUI, you inject the woman with hormones so that she releases, it increases her chances of releasing embryos. She could release just one, or she could release 7. Once those embryos have been released, you check, then you tell the mother, how many embryos you think you see there, and you implant the mother with the father's semen. So this is why Kate really wanted to use IUI. It would increase her chances of having multiples.
Did they not approve of you putting your children on television? Was that part of the issue?
No, it was before television. And at that time, I felt like it was best just to step back and take a break.
Okay. So back to Dr. A. Once Kate realized that Dr. A was not going to be like manipulated in the way that Kate was really hoping Dr. A would just like fall over like John had her whole life and do whatever she wanted, she decided to leave that practice and go to like a less well-known, maybe less reputable practice in Wyoming, a practice that she could have gone to all along. It was much closer to her home. And Hoffman makes the argument of like, with Kate being so OCD and doing, now he says, I guess like as a reporter, he was following Kate throughout the day, like trying to get pictures, trying to get information during the years of like Kate plus E. He says that when he was following Kate, she did the same exact thing every day. She went to the same grocery store no matter what. It would be an hour away and he would follow her and she would go to the same grocery store every day, despite like 5 different grocery stores that were much closer. Now it's kind of weird to know that he's like following her everywhere. But anyway, the point being that he really saw that she's very dedicated to staying on the same schedule, staying with the same people, and yet she was willing to change clinics in order to get what she wanted. She wanted IUI. Okay, so she goes to this clinic with Dr. B.
So have you lost most of your family?
I have. You know, my parents do support me from afar. I have one sister who drops the judgment and just says, whatever you choose to do, I support you.
Okay. Dr. B was much closer to her home, so she kind of started making an argument with John and her father-in-law, like, that's why I'm switching to this doctor, and I'm sure they're like, whatever, sounds good. Okay, so Hoffman tells us that he has gotten to know Dr. B. He says, I've been to this office several times, I've like talked to him, I've done research about this clinic. And essentially, from Dr. B's point of view, you know, he or she assumed that he was, I'm going to go with he because I'm pretty sure it was a he. Dr. B assumed that Kate needed these fertility treatments. She wanted IUI and he went with it. Okay, whatever. She probably seemed like she was more knowledgeable about fertility treatments than he was. So he was like, oh, okay, you think you need IUI? All right, well, you seem like you know what you're talking about. Here you go. Okay, so in order to start the IUI process, the doctor started giving Kate injections of HCG, hormone, and it induced her to ovulate and release eggs, which is what, like, someone with PCOS or fertility issues, they may, you know, be struggling with releasing eggs. Okay, so she goes in for her cycle. She's receiving these HCG shots from the doctor to help her release eggs. She goes in for like a checkup during the cycle, and Dr. B takes a look and finds that she has already released 3 to 4 embryos. He takes a look and he's like, okay, I'm taking a look. Oh my gosh, looks like we've got 3, maybe 4 in there. I would be like, no. Okay, so at this point with IUI, you have the option to do like selective reduction, which means getting rid of some of the eggs, or you can just say, you know what, I don't want to inseminate like during this round. Let's just stop. We won't do anything, and then next round I'll do injections again, and we'll see if we get less eggs. Maybe we'll do less of the hormone. And that's what a lot of people do, according to Hoffman in this book, is that like if you find out that you have the release of multiple eggs and that's not really what you want, then you could just wait until another round. But Kate was like, no, like this sounds good. John and I have already talked about the chance of having twins, maybe triplets. So, I mean, I'm okay with this and this sounds good.
But at this stage in her life, Kate says she doesn't expect anyone to stand by her side.
I tell my friends, if you're brave enough to step into my world, sorry.
Are you at a vulnerable place now, very emotional?
I am, because there's very few people who I can trust.
All right, so Dr. B is like, okay, I mean, triplets. I guess he's kind of like, whatever, triplets sound fine. Now, this is where Hoffman makes an extraordinary accusation. And it looks like he's bringing the receipts. This is insanity to me. It never occurred to me that Kate Goslin was another Nadia Suleiman. Okay, so according to Hoffman, he has found evidence that Kate actually went home from that appointment and immediately injected herself with an HCG shot she bought probably on like the illegal market from outside of the country. This is what Hoffman writes. What Kate actually did when she got home was to immediately give herself at least one more shot of HCG, which she had purchased online in a kit 3 months earlier. To keep the purchase a secret, she went outside the United States and purchased the drug overseas and had it shipped to her newly created post office box in Wyomissing. She used the name Kate Kaufman when ordering. Perhaps the only mistake she made was not destroying the HCG packaging. So Kaufman is alleging that she illegally went home and injected herself with more hormone, hoping to increase the number of embryos. So now, John's sperm have been introduced to her uterus, and she's doing everything she can to ensure that she has even more babies. This is insanity. And he even has like the information here about how she ordered the HCG. It's crazy. It's crazy to me.
And I look at those people and I say, why do you keep coming back? Because you'll end up in a tabloid magazine and suddenly the world wants to know everything about you.
Okay, so then it's just like maybe a week later that she goes back in to see Dr. B, and he goes to take a look and see what's going on, and he's like, what the heck just happened here? He's like, oh, shit, because when he takes a look, he realizes that there are now 7 fertilized embryos in Kate's womb.
I'm sorry, can you stop breathing so loud, honey?
Kate was famously tough on John.
He's like...
In retrospect, she acknowledges that at times she was too tough.
First of all, why are you sitting here where the construction's going on?
According to Kate, he was in shock. He was like, whoa. I think he's thinking, I effed up. And he's also like, how the hell did this happen? Okay. To further bolster the idea that this is definitely the situation, Hoffman lets us know that Kate actually ended up getting really sick. She had to go to the hospital after all this happened because she had a very rare condition where her ovaries were overstimulated. And with this situation, she experienced like such severe pain that she had to be hospitalized for it. And when they took a look, they were like, oh my gosh, you have this rare situation where your ovaries are extremely overstimulated. How weird. How could that have happened? What's going on here? It's called ovarian hyperstimulation. And it can happen like when you're using HCG shots. But like I said, it's so rare that it kind of, Hoffman's like leading us to think it makes sense that she would have given herself an extra injection.
To dress them. No, sit over on your chair, please.
A lot of people look at those little instances and they say, here's a man who was emasculated by a woman. So they might sympathize with John.
And they did.
Now, Hoffman wants us to know that when Kate talks about finding out she was going to have 7 babies and multiple blessings, she basically like really overstates that she was so fearful and horrified and disappointed the moment she learned that she was pregnant with 7 babies. But she also makes sure to throw in a lot of statistics to let us know like it's incredibly rare that this would ever happen. She's like a miracle, guys. It's a miracle. And she just has to accept like she's pretty much the Virgin Mary, so like it's okay. It'll be okay. Okay, and then according to Kate, this is so sad, John literally dropped to his knees when he found out. John was stricken with fear and nauseous, and he couldn't bear to look at anyone. Yeah. If I were John, I would be unable to look at anyone because I would be effing embarrassed that I let my wife get us to this place with my father's damn money. That's what I would be like. I would be like, what? No. Kate, you're effing crazy. No. I can't even imagine.
To a degree, are they right? Yes. I was very hard on him, and I would never deny that. I felt very much like a lot of weight rested on my shoulders.
I don't think it's like a miracle or fun or anything. I mean, what ended up happening with this family is like too much. They had too many kids to meet all the needs of the children. And I'm sure for John, he was immediately like, how am I even going to feed this many kids? Meanwhile, Kate's over there like, how am I going to be able to get enough headshots to get all these kids on TV? It's going to be crazy, you know? So, poor John, he should have fallen beyond on his knees. Okay, so to turn this all around, Hoffman lets us know, all of this happens and Kate's pregnant and, they got to figure out what's next. But one really big part of Kate's plan develops shortly after finding out that they're pregnant. So part of what Kate wanted to make sure to do was to appeal to a Christian audience. Now Hoffman makes the case that this is sort of like not that she really is a believer and is so faithful, even though she grew up, within the faith and her dad's a pastor. And she realized that a lot of attention, affection, and help could come from a Christian church community. That people within the Christian church community were going to be the ones who would be so quick to be like, yay, 7 children, they're a blessing, we love them. And so in order to appeal to them, Kate immediately started making a huge deal about how no matter what happened, she would never, ever consider selective reduction. Because a lot of people in Kate's situation, which it is a very rare situation, would have chosen to reduce the number of embryos. But in all of Kate's interviews and talks and books, since she had the multiples, she has made a huge deal about how this was a gift from God. It was such a miracle that there was no way with her strong moral feelings that she would ever reduce the number of babies. And Hoffman wants us to know that this is also a big part of Kate's appeal. The way that she made a lot of money, the way that she got so much support, was really turning towards the church and manipulating people to be on her side, to support her through using their faith against them. Kate's just one more lie was front and center during the John and Kate +8 television years. If you start at the very beginning with the first television special on the Goslin family, you'll see and hear Kate already being on the defensive. Before anyone even questioned her about whether or not she intentionally set out to have multiples, the thought that Kate had planned to have high-order multiples would never have crossed my mind had Kate not gone on and on and on about how, in fact, she never planned on having multiples. The lady most certainly doth protest too much. One thing that I saw on the show, especially as it developed, and during and after Kate had the divorce from John, is that Kate started talking extensively about problems like within her family, problems with her parents and her brother and so on and so forth.
Thank you so much.
Kate has been on the road for business and speaking commitments, which has meant time away from her children.
So cute.
She lays out the kids' new school pictures as if they were playing cards.
And she kept being like, they just disagree with me about everything. They question my decisions and what I do. And I thought that was weird. I was like, what decisions? Like, what are you talking about? Just the way that she came at it made me think that there was some like background and discussion as to like, why did you have this many children? Like almost like they sort of knew that this was a choice she was making, that she didn't have to do it this way. You know, I also wonder if she was trying to have more. I've thought about that a lot. I know she says that she didn't, but I don't know. Just the way she talks about, like, my family's always second guessing my choices and my opinions. And it's like, were they telling you, like, no, please do not go back for more fertility treatments? I just have to wonder about that.
So when you look into their little eyes,
Yeah.
what do you see? These are their latest pictures. What are they going through right now?
I see little balls of promise.
Okay, towards the end of this chapter, there's a little bit of a focus on John, and it just says that John said that life was great as a family of 4, and Kate said they wanted just one more. And he said, no, he's happy with the twins, and said that everything is perfect. He said the whole world is designed for 4 people, and Kate added, let's face it, infertility produces multiples. We all know that. So once again, she's kind of dragging John along. And this is where, like, I would say, John, grow some balls. I really have had a hard time with, and people really hate, you guys would probably be mad at me for this. I don't like it when men are with and seemingly supporting narcissistic women. And I could say the opposite as well, but I think it's been in the news lately, like with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, which people were so angry with me that I said this, but I was like, where is his responsibility in this? Because from my point of view, it kind of sounds like, yes, she was narcissistic, yes, she's a terrible person, but why would someone, especially in Johnny Depp's situation, with all the money, all the power, all the fame, he has family, he has children, he has everything, he has support, why would he stay with and continue to support this woman who is doing awful things? I mean, he is the one that's allowing her to do these awful things by paying for them, by helping her get movie roles, by like setting her up to be around famous people. Like, he is supporting and causing her narcissism to grow and to take root and to hurt his children. So I have a little bit of this feeling towards John, because to me it's kind of like, I mean, I guess you really like the nookie. Like, let's be honest. That's kind of what, I can't believe I just said that. But you know, it's like, that's what I'm feeling, is it's like you like that so much. You're so weak that you can't walk away from that. And we know how narcissism is, and there's love bombing, and there's all these things. I get it. But I have to say that if I was in a situation where I felt like just this person did whatever for me, had whatever for me, but it's hurting my children. It's hurting people that I love, my family, our close friends. Like, the person is so narcissistic that it's causing major issues for people that I care about. I mean, if I was financially able to, I would walk away. Now, John, maybe part of the situation was that he's like, I do get, like, he's like, I can't leave this situation. I would have zero money because everything I would ever make would always go to supporting all these kids. So maybe he was in a worse situation until they made a lot of money. I don't know. But I want to question responsibility on the part of the person who kind of like props up the narcissist, right? Like, get the heck out of there. Do not support her. Like, why are you going to your father and be like, will you pay for some more fertility treatments? Kate really wants them. No. You know, if they, is so annoying to me.
Yet she's also reminded of sadness back home.
They all, to a degree, say, you know, I wish both mommy and daddy could be here at the same time. And, you know, to that I say, I do too.
Okay, and that is the end of chapter 6. Moving on to chapter 7. This chapter is called John and Kate 101, How Did We Get Here?
Coming up.
You know, in the last 9-10 months, it's gotten really crazy. And I can't seem to get away from it at this point.
And later.
Do you still love John?
Okay, this chapter is interesting because it's all about like who contacted who, how did the filming come to be. So John and Kate, they filmed with a company called Figure 8 Films. So TLC actually, this is what I've learned going down the rabbit hole, they contract out. So there's actually like filming companies that actually work with the families and do all of the filming, and then they send, and then they create the show, and TLC puts it on their network. Now, Kate has stated many times that Figure 8 Films contacted them out of the blue. But Hoffman says, like, of course, this wasn't true at all. All right, so in Multiple Blessings, once again, Kate makes up a whole weird concocted story, according to Hoffman, which I really do believe this. Kate makes up this story about how there was, quote unquote, media mayhem around the birth of their twins, and she has no idea why. Like, why would people even be interested in this? And I do feel like no one would really be interested in it unless you made a big deal about it. That's what I think, but whatever. Maybe Wyoming is different than the rest of the world. But also, we were in a time where people were maybe more interested in stuff like this. So, in Multiple Blessings, Kate has a chapter called Media Mayhem, and she writes that it was, quote unquote, everyone's fear that once she was admitted to the hospital, the news of our unusual adventure would leak to the media. Leak to the media. There's millions of people in this country. Like, it's not going to leak to the media. Like, you're no one special. Nothing like that is going to happen unless you're making a big deal out of it. That's just what it seems like to me. And that's what Hoffman argues here. He brings receipts. But in Multiple Blessings, Kate keeps saying, like, we really didn't want to make a big deal about it. Like, we didn't want everyone to know because we thought it would affect my health and the health of my babies for there to be, like, so much crazy mayhem going on and everyone's, like, supposed to be on TV. I mean, who even thinks about these things? So I guess maybe because it was going to be 7 and there was only one other family who had been able to have 7. Maybe that does make sense that the media would be interested. Now, we know that they lost one of the babies, so it ended up only being 6, which is probably like a knife in the kidney to Kate Gosselin. But, you know, they did end up losing. They only had 6 babies. But still, I guess that would be a big deal in certain ways. Now, I think this is really weird. Kate writes in Multiple Blessings, we had decided that John would be the one to speak to the media for both of us. She said that she and John had agreed to give their hometown newspaper, the Reading Eagle, an exclusive interview only out of self-defense because of information that she had received several weeks earlier that someone, oh my gosh, who had worked with Kate at the hospital was threatening to talk to the press about them. Oh. So maybe that's why she really, from the beginning, was worried about media. That's really interesting. So it sounds like a colleague was already going to say something about Kate kind of doing this on purpose, and she needed to get out there ahead of them. Okay. So once again, within the book, Multiple Blessings, Kate is saying, like, you know, these people were hounding me, wanting all this attention to be put on the birth, and I was, like, pulling back. I had to have John, like, be in charge of talking to the media. But Hoffman says this was all a big, fat lie, okay? According to Hoffman, Kate was the only one who contacted the Reading Eagle to get as much publicity for herself as possible. In an editorial published in 2011 by this writer named Harry Dietz, Harry Dietz says, before all the fame, Kate called our newspaper and offered to allow a reporter to follow the delivery of the sextuplets. It was a great story then, and it changed quickly. Entered the TLC television network, lots of fame, and apparently lots of money. So Harry Dietz, who was the one who ended up, like, covering overall, like, most of the stuff that happened with the Goslins in their local paper, he basically says, like, she is the one that contacted us and we came out to do the story. To further talk about, like, the fact that Kate's lying about what happened with the media, Hoffman says that in Multiple Blessings, again, Kate makes it like one day out of the blue, this TLC network contacted us. It was crazy. And John was like, what is reality television? He didn't even know. Kate writes, this is a literal quote from Kate. This is a literal quote from Kate. It was becoming more and more difficult to duck into the shadows. How did our quiet little existence in the suburbs of Pennsylvania somehow blossom, or maybe explode is a better word, into a story that someone wanted to tell on national TV? Who would have thunk it? Which is crazy. Okay, so Hoffman says the Goslin story did not reach Discovery Communications and its TLC network by chance. Oh, no. The Goslins' quiet existence in the suburbs blossomed into a story because Kate marketed the story. So Hoffman says that he has evidence that Kate spent countless hours contacting media outlets, setting up interviews, just doing everything she could to make this a big news story. She started from the bottom, like her local news, and worked her way up. It was all part of her grand plan from day one. And he says it started during the pregnancy. She didn't even wait until after the kids were born, despite the fact that it was unclear, like, if all the kids were going to be okay or not. And he says that ultimately, seeking out all of this media attention was because Kate was chasing fame, but also money. She was looking for those freebies to start rolling in as soon as possible. And we all know this family really needed them. They're about to have 6 additions to the family. All right, that is the end of chapter 7. Okay, chapter 8 is next. The next couple of chapters I'm gonna go through kind of quickly. They're just a little bit about like all the contracts, how everything was set up with TLC. And I mean, it's interesting, but it's kind of like, the basic premise is like, they sold out their whole lives. Now, what I think is really interesting as I read ahead a little bit, it's like several chapters or a couple chapters down the way, Hoffman gets into this crazy information. I'm not even going to say accusation because he's giving us, look, I started. He shows us the letters that were written by John and Kate, most likely Kate, to the state of Pennsylvania, to several senators. And these letters are all about Kate basically doing what I would consider medical grifting. I mean, it's crazy. It's basically like she's trying to get the 6 children declared disabled so that she could continue to receive free services from the state. I am shocked and appalled by this information. So this is going to be a couple of chapters down the way. It might be in my next video or the video after, but it's a big effing deal to me. Because I have worked for a long time with families who are in very difficult situations, medical situations, developmental situations with their children, who would give anything to have help in the home that was paid for. And every state is so different. And what I have seen is insanity. How one person gets so much and another person gets so little, and it seems to not be based on need. A lot of it seems to be based on like, how good are you at manipulating and gaming the system? And another thing that I've seen, and this is when a long time ago when I used to live in North Carolina, so every state is very different. But what was happening there is that there were a certain number of slots for home health help. And once those slots had been filled, and it's complicated to describe the situation that I was working in, but like once those slots had been filled, it's like everybody else just goes on a waiting list. This was at this time. I don't know if it's changed. They go on a waiting list and they don't get a slot until somebody, that group of, let's say, 3,000 people who get the services. I have no idea how much it really is, but like this group of 3,000 people, they don't get the slot until someone leaves the group, like they get off the list. And it's insane. I remember, because I was working for some families who were on the list who clearly did not need services as much as people who were on the wait list. It was just so sad to see. And it's something that has always deeply disturbed me. And I never want to take services away from any child, so I'm not trying to be like, you know, we should get in there and evaluate everyone and get rid of the services. But I mean, no, it's not fair. It's not done fairly in certain situations. I'm sure every state is different, but yeah, it's gross to me. And that is coming up. Oh my gosh, you guys. What are your thoughts and feelings about all this? I love reading your comments. I love when you guys like tell me things that I didn't know. So leave me a comment down below and join me next time as we head down another rabbit hole.